Well then, 2 week lockdown in New South Wales at the moment. I definitely don't have any excuses not to make enough videos for you guys. So here we are for our halves video for the week. We're going to be looking into the types of players you want to be looking to get in your squad for round 16, but then also for the rest of the year. So our number one and clear option is Cleary, obviously at a 97 average, which is just incredible, and 350k more expensive than the next half, who is averaging 65 and is 864k in DCE. So there's a couple of guys here with Daly and Jerome Hughes, who I think are pretty interchangeable in terms of, whichever one you'd want in your squad. I think they're both going to average a very similar mark for the rest of the year, and they're only 8k apart from each other. So, if we're looking at having two of the top gun halves, I think you've got to have a combination of Cleary and DCE or Cleary and Hughes. I feel like there's, if you're wanting to be in the top sort of 500, top 1,000, I think that they're the two that you're looking for. Could you have all three? For sure. Could you have two of that combo and maybe a Mitch Moses or a Fogarty? Might still have a Luke Brooks in your team. These kind of guys, I think, yeah, definitely you can do that as well. But just with how clear ahead of the fourth guy that the DC and Hughes are, I think you definitely need one of them in your squad going into the final sort of 6 to 8 rounds there, when they're both going to be out in 17 for Origin or the bye with Jerome. It'll just be if DCE backs up, and I think he should. We'll just obviously have to see. That's a bunch of weeks away. We're about to head into Origin 2 tonight, so there could be injuries, could be suspensions, all the rest. So that's that with those two guys. If we're looking at our next fella, it will be Mitch Moses. I've got as our number 4 option. Obviously, the next best average, along with Munster, and at a pretty solid price of 646 too. He's actually fairly cheap, and we'll have a look at his stats and how he's been going. And there's a reason why he's a little bit cheaper than what his average suggests. Just, his 55 average puts him at over 700k, but because he had that lean bunch of weeks there, just a few weeks ago with 38, 42, and 25, you actually see that his prices had a nice dip. Obviously, with him, he won't be playing in round 17, but the majority of those guys on our list aren't. So there's only Reynolds and Nicarima who are definitely lower options on the totem pole. So if you own Moses, I think he's definitely a hold for the rest of the season. A 55-point average is very high for anyone. This is kind of one of the higher positions average-wise this year. So he's definitely going to be a hold for the rest of the year. The question is going to be, do you pick him up? If you're someone that's lacking, you haven't built up a lot of extra cash across the year, maybe you're ranked sort of 5 to 10,000 right now, then Moses could be the guy that has that little bit of upside, that has that like 60-point upside, but you get him at a nice discount. And if you haven't built up the money in your bank based on getting the best cash cows, or just haven't done as well this year, then I think someone like Moses could be a good option going forward. And you see what he can do with a 74 and 87 in the last 2 games. Obviously 6 goals and a try assist in those couple of games, but you can see what he done earlier on in the year. A couple of 67, 64s, 73s, and a bunch of 60s. So he definitely has that potential. He's just got a couple of lower games where he had 18 in a 26-minute effort and a 25 in his 55-minute effort when he came off early with a bit of a calf complaint. So for me, I think he's a little bit undervalued, and I think is a good option for anyone's squad. If we look into our next guy, I'm rating Fogs as number 5 in our list, just because I think more people have him at this stage. And if you don't have the other guys in this list, and talks of Pierce, Brown, Munster, all these kind of guys, then in terms of picking them up is probably not the best option, because I'd be going for the DCE Hughes Cleary combo, if that makes sense. So if you got Fogs, I think you can hold on to him and have him as your third half or your cover. If you're really struggling, then you can have him as one of your starters with Cleary, for example. But yeah, at 650k, he's actually more expensive than Moses, and I think Moses has more upside. So with Fogs at a 52 average, I think that's what you're going to get from him the rest of the year. If Titans start to play a bit better as a team, then he'll obviously get more goals and more assists and all the rest. So that's my thoughts on our top 5 to round that out. And then we've got a few different guys. We've got someone like Munster, who's also averaging really high at 55. And just, I suppose with Jerome Hughes taking over a lot of, just becoming a better player in the halves role for the Storm, Munster hasn't had to do as much. You can see he's only got a few tries this year, 3 tries for the year. And just a fairly consistent score. You look at his last few games, though, and it's a little bit low. So 34, 64, 32, 50 to go along with him averaging close to 60 for the first portion of the year. So for me, I think something has to change, like a Hughes has to get injured or something like that for Munster to become a really, really strong option. Other than that, I just don't think he has the upside because he's not kicking goals. He doesn't kick as much as some of the other halves in general play. Obviously, the majority of his points comes from running the ball, tackle breaks, and the odd try assist there. So for Munster, a nice average, but a high break even, and I wouldn't be touching him at this stage. We got that one there with Munster. Someone like Mitchell Pearce becomes a slightly interesting option, a 664. Also a bit more expensive than the likes of Moses and stuff like that. So I'd be picking them before a Pearce. But you can see what happens when he does get a gig. So he's obviously only played 5 games this year. And that comes with a 70, 59, a 59, a 63. And obviously his injury affected 17 in 26 minutes, which would have been a really strong score as well. He already kicked for 233 metres in that time. So with Pearce, he's obviously the dominant playmaker, which means the kick meters are really high. Awesome. He runs the ball, as always. He's a really good defensive player, apart from when he throws his arm out there and destroys his pec. But you look at the amount of missed tackles is really low, and he does get the offloads and tackle breaks. So for him, you have someone who has the potential to average 60, which you can see at times last year could do that. But obviously also had some lower games mixed in with that. But it also depended on who he had next to him in the 6 role. And this year they definitely don't have someone who's anywhere close to as dominant as him. And you can see how much better they play with Pearce in the team. So he becomes a little bit of an option. With a high break even, I'd be looking to just hold off for the next few weeks. Again, most of these guys are going to be possible pickups in round 18 after the bye or after Origin. So that's that with Pearcey. And then a couple of other guys we could talk about is Brownie, Dylan Brown. We've spoken about him a fair bit leading up to the Origin period, the first bye round, which we were targeting those Eels players. And for me at 52.5, I just think there's some better options at the same price point that have more potential to average 60 plus. I think Brown's very solid at the 50 odd mark. Is someone who tackles really well, doesn't have the big kick meters. It's obviously more of a runner of the ball, doesn't kick goals. So there's more upside with a couple of these other players. If their team starts to play better than where they're at currently, apart from like a Penrith or a Storm where they can't really play any better than they are, then there's some upside there. Where someone like Brown, I don't think has that upside. We'll talk about Brooks as well, and a 51.7. It's kind of just like that. If you have him over a Fogs or a Moses, it's almost just like you can hold him as your third half and play him every week because he's averaging 52. But Tigers aren't a team with upside. He doesn't play 17. There's a few things there that you can go, okay, maybe I'm going to look to move him up to like a DCE or a Hughes. Or you can just hold him steady. That's completely fine. And then we'll talk about the 2 guys that are actually playing in round 17. So that'll be Adam Reynolds for a starter at 636k. Guys, if you are enjoying this, it'd be really helpful if you hit the like button and also subscribed. It's the best way to support me. I really appreciate that. But here we are with Reynolds there at 51.2. Plays in round 17, which is good. But scoring has just been a little bit all over the shop. Obviously doesn't score too many tries. Hasn't had that many tries this year, which is really weird. So you could say he definitely has the potential to improve on that stat. It's actually crazy. He actually had 2 tries for the year. You wouldn't think that coming into it, would you? But obviously kicks amazing goals, plenty of kicks in general play. Just has the ability to do everything across the park. So he's someone who has an opportunity to score well in your squad and obviously play 17 as well. And if he's averaging 51.2, if you get his score in 17 with what? That gives you 9 rounds to go. Divide 50 by 9 gives us a nice close to 5 extra points per week. So you can class that out to like a 56 average, if that made sense to anyone. That extra 50 points equated over the next 9 weeks gives him an average of 56 if he plays the rest of the year. And you can tell why 6% of teams in the top 5,000, top 100 have Reynolds, is because you get that little bit of an upside there for someone that has been a keeper for years and years and years. So keep that in mind if you're looking at someone like Reynolds. And Nikarima we've spoken about in the past as well, is 619k, just a little bit cheaper, still averaging over 50 at 52 there. And the only reason that he's gotten a little bit of a lower price at the moment is these last bunch of weeks. So 40, 45, 57, and 38. So had a little bit of a run there where he absolutely killed it, 61, 70, 56. A couple of good ones at the start of the year. And I just think over the long run, he's going to average at 52. Does play 17, so you get that extra sort of 5 points out of him, 5 to 6 points, which is great. It's just going to be, do you think that's worth it? Could you get him in a straight trade for someone? And would you be happy with him going forward? What I will say is Chad Townsend has he signed? I'm not exactly sure if he signed for straight away to go over to the Warriors or not. But if he has, then that might take away a few of the kick meters and stuff from Nikorima, with Townsend being a bit more of a dominant sort of guiding playmaker, whereas Nikorima sort of that see what's in front of him and make his decisions from there. So yeah, that's the thoughts on Nikorima. Did I have anyone else in there? No, that's it, guys, for our halves position. Let me know what you thought on that one. Who have you got in your side at the moment? How are you playing this one out? Are you going to be going with two clear half options and then maybe a dual position of someone I haven't spoken about, whether it's a wing fullback half or a Schuster in a second row half as your backup, or are you going three really strong halves options there? Has anyone got Cleary, DC, and Hughes? Because if you do, I think you're scoring pretty well. So yeah, let me know what you think, guys, on that one, and we'll go from there. Hope you enjoy the Origin tonight, and we'll catch you in the next one, team. Have a good day.